general compensatory quotations for thought, speech, and/or action. If you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. There is no way to talk about the race problem and tell the truth, and make logical suggestions based on the truth, without white people being offended, and without non-white people being embarrassed. It has been said that the race problem cannot be solved, it can only be discussed. If this is true, there is no reason to discuss it. I intend to solve the race problem. That means that if I am to be remembered, it will be for solving the race problem. If I do not solve the race problem, I probably will not be worth remembering. The only reason for being a member of a race is to practice racism. The only reason for practicing racism is to gain so-called benefits by mistreating people based on the so-called color classification of those people. Race is racism. A person who functions as a member of a race is a racist, white supremacist. Racism has done more to promote non-justice than any other socio-negation material system known to have been produced or supported by the people of the known universe. No major problem that exists among and between the people of the known universe can be eliminated until racism is eliminated. The fear, frustration, malice, and confusion that is caused by racism retards or prevents all constructive activity between the people of the known universe. The only form of functional racism that exists among the people of the known universe is white supremacy. Never upstage the message of logic with your own fragile, petty, and pitiful personality. I know of no person, including myself, who is not seriously flawed. What the white supremacists, racists, want more than anything else, is not land, money, or separation from non-white people. What the white supremacists want more than anything else, is white supremacy. Racism, itself, the system of white supremacy, racism, itself, is an insane system and, as such, requires that both its supporters and its victims function as insane persons. As long as white supremacy, racism, exists, justice, balance between people, cannot exist. During the existence of white supremacy, every major mistake that white people have made has been because of something that they did in support of white supremacy, and every major mistake that non-white people have made has been because of something that they did in support of the major mistakes of white people. Many white supremacists, both male and female, most of the time, are very, very nice, pleasant, and gentle, both to white people and to non-white people. That does not mean, however, that a white supremacist practices justice, balance between people. White supremacy, itself, is the greatest and most effective form of non-justice in the known universe. A person can be nice, pleasant, and gentle and, at the same time, mistreat people in many different ways, particularly through destructive deception when practiced on a massive scale. There is no such thing as a so-called racially separate school. All so-called schools are either dominated by white supremacists, racists, or they are not. As long as white supremacy exists, white people will continue to unjustly kill non-white people, and non-white people will continue to unjustly kill each other. Only the force that produced non-white people can keep the white supremacists from killing some or all of the non-white people. One of the most destructive things that racist men and racist women, white supremacists, collectively, require non-white people to do is to lie to themselves, and to speak and act as if the lies are true. During the existence of white supremacy, every interaction between white people and non-white people can best be described as tacky, trashy, or terroristic, or the tragic arrangement. Apostrophe the system of white supremacy is the greatest conspiracy ever produced by the people of the known universe, and the white people who have chosen to participate in the system of white supremacy are the greatest conspirators. During the existence of white supremacy, racism, and according to compensatory counter-racist logic, any white person who is able to think, speak, and act to end white supremacy, and who does not do so, should be regarded as a racist suspected white supremacist. In the history of the known universe, the system of white supremacy has proven to be the most powerful, political, and religious concept ever produced in the minds of people, for the purpose of motivating people to do great things through the most sophisticated process of mistreating people. The only race of people existing in the known universe is a white race. God is God, religion is religion, and one is not, necessarily, in harmony with the other. The religion of white supremacy, racism, is the greatest, strongest, and most efficient religion ever established among the people of the known universe, and the gods of that religion are the white supremacists themselves. As long as white supremacy, racism, exists, every non-white person in the known universe possesses the victim's guaranteed qualification, VGQ, of saying whatever he or she thinks should be said about race, racism, and or counter-racism. As long as any problem exists in the known universe, all people who are aware of the existence of the problem have a duty to solve the problem, even if it is said that the problem cannot be solved. Apostrophe white supremacy, racism, is the greatest, the most organized, and the most effective form of terrorism now in existence among the people of the known universe. A non-white person cannot be successful and, at the same time, be subject to the system of white supremacy, racism. White supremacy, racism, is the greatest, simplest, most powerful and efficient political and religious idea ever put into practice among the people of the known universe. Its power over people is all-engrossing. No political experiment, philosophy, or religion is yet to equal or overcome it. During the existence of white supremacy, racism, when you hear a non-white person laughing, the one thing that you can be certain of is that absolutely nothing is funny. As long as white supremacy exists, the non-white person who thinks that anything is funny is either ignorant of the truth about what is happening, or he or she is acutely insane. Injustice is a form of insanity. The slave that is happy is the one that the slave master has damaged the most. Prayer, combined with constructive work, may not help, but it certainly will not hurt. Flag waving is no proof of patriotism. Flag waving is proof of flag waving. The system of white supremacy, racism, is the most powerful prison/institution among the people of the known universe, and all of its inmates, victims/non-white people, have become institutionalized and mentally warped. The system of white supremacy has proven to be the most powerful system in the known universe for getting things done, but the cost is too high. It requires the killing and other mistreatment of non-white people. The system of justice, balance between people, would be better and best. All victims of white supremacy are functional children, and all of the white people who practice white supremacy are their illegitimate parents. Apostrophe as long as you are planning the next battle, you have not lost the war. Say something of constructive value, or say nothing at all and leave room for constructive thought. If it takes a village to raise a child, then it also takes a nation to produce a village, a system, to produce a nation, and a code of thinking, speaking, and acting, to produce a system. Apostrophe no person can be married and be subject to white supremacy, racism, at the same time. When you willfully and deliberately do unjust harm to someone, you are insulting your creator. Disappointment comes from incorrect expectations. A rapist, robber, murderer, and a terrorist are one and the same. Crazy people do not know that they are crazy, except those who are sane enough to know that they are crazy. When you take a man away from his land, you also take the land away from the man, and the man away from himself. the basic universal qualification that every person should have before trying to do anything, in any area of activity, is to have the correct intentions. Beware of people who try to increase your needs. The best way to have a lot is to need a little. Many white supremacists, racist men and racist women, collectively, enjoy killing and maiming so much that they sometimes kill and maim each other for no other reason than that they are bored. When they get bored with killing non-white people, they often kill each other in order to test or improve their skills, considering the mess that the world is in. None of us have proven ourselves worthy of the next breath we take, or the last breath we took. Stand by your work. No people in the known universe are the quality of people that people should be. Students do not fail to learn. Teachers fail to learn how to teach. In all so-called educational systems dominated by white supremacists, white students are taught how to be white supremacists, racists, and non-white students are taught how to be victims of white supremacy/racism. Every problem I have ever had, and every mistake I have ever made, can be traced to race, racism. Anything that people put together, people can take apart. The system of white supremacy, racism, was put together by people. People can take it apart, and replace it with justice. The only smart people in greater confinement, jail, prison, stockade, etc., are those who planned to be there. If you are a person who refuses to do justice, you need not tell me who you are. I know who you are. You are a person who refuses to do justice. The greatest flaw a person can have is being unwilling to name them all. The fittest should survive, so that they can use their fitness to help the unfit to become fit. If you think that killing people is, and should be, great entertainment, then kill yourself. People do not create anything. People only arrange what has been created. As long as white supremacy, racism, exists, every non-white person who says that he or she is a victim of white supremacy, racism, is always telling the truth. During the existence of white supremacy, every non-white person is a child, and every white person who practices white supremacy, racism, is a master child abuser. Seek to learn what it is that a person wants most, and you will likely learn what he or she will do to get it. Those who seek to glorify thugdom by acting as thugs, and or by being thugs, should expect to be dead as soon as possible, and probably should be. During the existence of white supremacy, trying to replace white supremacy with justice is the most logical way for every person to use his or her time and energy and, as such, should be regarded as his or her major assigned duty. True happiness comes only in moments, which pass quickly before you fully appreciate them. Enjoy them and memorize them. They are precious and few in number. When they are gone, the memory of them is all that you have. During the existence of white supremacy, racism, the most pitiful act that a non-white person can commit is to ask for, or so-called demand so-called respect from white people. Never make a criticism without making a constructive suggestion. Whoever dominates you, also dominates everything that you claim is yours. People who say that they are proud to be an American, an African, or an Asian, are not telling the truth. Americans, Africans, and Asians do not yet exist. The only thing that you can truthfully say is yours is whatever you have that no other person can take. Incorrect government. Forced dislocation without compensation is subversive. If you rearrange the language, you also rearrange the way people think, speak, and act. People who no one cares about should not be expected to care about anyone else. All people are seriously flawed. Our flaws cause all of us to spread social poison among all of us. For this reason, we all should minimize conflict by seeking to minimize all contact with each other that is not of planned constructive value. Either black people are inferior to white people, or the white supremacists, racist men and racist women, collectively, are to blame for black people's problems, or both. Unfortunately, too many black people are silly about those things that are serious, and serious about those things that are silly. We all came into this world begging for help, and if we stay in this world long enough, we will leave it begging for help. Avoid putting your trust in any person who makes you a promise that he or she does not keep. According to compensatory counter-racist logic, it is impossible for a racist to function as a police officer, and impossible for a police officer to function as a racist. It has been said that the race problem cannot be solved. It can only be discussed. If the race problem cannot be solved, there is no reason to discuss it. Study everything, brag about nothing, celebrate nothing. If you insist on bragging, brag about all the times that you learned how ignorant you are. The only persons who are experts in the knowledge of practicing white supremacy, racism, are those white people who practice it. As long as white supremacy, racism, exists, there is no such person as a black leader. There are, instead, black spokespersons, black persons who speak. During the existence of white supremacy, all of the leaders of black people are those, white, people who practice white supremacy, without the impact of white supremacy. The activities of non-white people are mostly insignificant. There are some who say that the best way to react to racism is to not talk about it, and to ignore it. That may be true. If you think it is, try it. Do not seek to glorify blackness. Seek to practice justice and correctness. Blackness will glorify itself. The best compensatory universal symbol for a so-called flag is a question mark. This is because we all enter the world with unanswered questions, and we leave it the same way. Keep reminding yourself that you did not create yourself, and because you did not create yourself, you owe your mission to that force that did. Constructive problem solving may be that mission. Never think that you are indestructible. You may be dead before the end of this day. To some slaves, slavery is not only, in some forms, more comfortable and convenient than justice, but also more prestigious. Romance is not the same as love, and a thrilling moment is not the same as a happy one. The person who gives you your most happy moments will also give you your most lonely ones. This is because you are not that person, and that person is not you. Try to do some things that will give you the kind of memories that will help you to not be lonely when you are alone. Know and understand that during your existence, you will fail at most things, including the things that you never tried to do, that you should have tried to do. Truth be told, for a great many people, most of their important memories will include acts of sexual intercourse. It is mentally healthy to have an intelligent fear of any white person who is able to be a racist, white supremacist, regardless of that person's age, sex, manner, or appearance of harmlessness. During the existence of white supremacy, it is best to always suspect non-white people's ability, and white people's intentions. Do not try to do the correct thing so that you will be remembered for doing the correct thing. Do the correct thing because it is the correct thing to do. Regard as especially dangerous any white woman who seeks contact with a non-white male for what she says is her need to learn how to solve the race problem. Lack of knowledge is costly. Lack of understanding that knowledge costs much more. The basic difference between a dignified slave and a silly one is that one is dignified, and the other one is silly. During the existence of white supremacy, racism, Give thanks to those white people for all of their acts of kindness, but do not mistake acts of kindness for justice. During the existence of white supremacy, do not be surprised when people, both white and non-white, sometimes do things that contradict what they have done before. An apology that you receive by asking for is worthless. Look for the effects of the white supremacist conspiracy, and look for it everywhere in everything that people think, say, and do. When you have been misinformed, say, I was misinformed. Do not expect the white supremacists, racists, to teach you enough to allow you to not be dominated by them. When in the presence of your chosen mate, male with female, when you are not annoyed, angry, thrilled, or happy, expect to be bored most of the time. Trivial conversation is often not only annoying and non-constructive, but is most often no improvement over silence. Practice being surprised at nothing. Practice not being surprised about anything that happens. Expect the so-called unexpected. As long as white supremacy, racism, exists, expect anything to happen that should not happen. Disappointment comes from expectation. Therefore, be careful and logical about what you expect. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what have I done today that was of constructive value? Avoiding the use of curse words may help a person to have a healthier mind. During the existence of white supremacy, black male-female so-called relationships can be mutual, but the system of white supremacy does not allow them to be harmonious. Always expect the white supremacists to so-called scandalize or discredit a non-white person's so-called character. Expect them to try to belittle those things that the person tried to do to end white supremacy. Expect them to do this usually after the non-white person has died. If you are religious but do not have a name for your religion, you are probably an eclectic pluralist. An eclectic pluralist is a person who has chosen to function according to many different parts of many different religions, concepts, beliefs, points of view, etc. Never say that no one has ever given you any help. Long before you were born, you were given much help by many people whom you will never know. When you become aware that your existence is very near the end, death, remember that every moment that you received was a gift. The people of the known universe do not create anything. They arrange what has been created. People who enjoy killing people should also enjoy being killed. Be honest with yourself. Make a list of the things that you know that you truly enjoy the most. That list is likely to be much shorter than you think. If you deliberately do things or wear things that you know will attract the attention of many people, do not be surprised, angry, or insulted when many people look at, and or stare at you, in response to the attention you have attracted. Many of the white supremacists, racists, are greatly skilled at doing many destructive things and doing them in such a manner as to make the destruction appear to be so-called acts of God, forces of nature, and / or natural causes. Where was that original thought before you originated it? If you are a victim of white supremacy, racism, you are also a servant to the white supremacists, whether you want to be or not. There is nothing sexier than a feminine female who enjoys being an effeminate female, superbly feminine female. This does not mean being weak as a person. It means being greatly strong as a feminine female person. Killing a person is easy. Helping a person, who needs help the most, is more difficult, and far more constructive. The only logical reason that you were allowed to breathe today, or any other day, is so you will do your best to give constructive help to those who are most in need of constructive help. White supremacy, racism, is a codified racist system. A codified racist system can be swiftly and efficiently eroded by a codified counter-racist system. If you pray alone, your prayers will likely be more focused, more honest, and more sincere. If you have ever willfully, deliberately, and unjustly killed a person, you should be willing to kill yourself, and do so immediately. Continuing to breathe is a luxury that you are not entitled to. There is no logical reason for you not to have killed yourself. Since you did not kill yourself then, you should kill yourself now. You owe it. If non-white people having sexual intercourse with white people would help solve the race problem, there would be no race problem. Every question in the known universe has a correct answer. Therefore, there is no such thing as a stupid question. Many people are dead who should not be dead. Many people are to blame. The people who are most to blame are hiding in plain sight. The people who are most to blame are the white supremacists, racists, of the known universe. If you understand white supremacy, racism, what it is, and how it works, you also understand that it is connected to everything that people do and don't do. During the existence of white supremacy, racism, insanity among non-white people is normal. Solve problems without making any. The first step in learning how not to be ignorant is to learn that you are ignorant. The so-called white lifestyle glorifies white supremacy, and the so-called black lifestyle glorifies stupidity. Put your faith only in the logic that the creator of the known universe has provided for all of us to use, and use it to produce the most constructive results. If you willfully, deliberately, and unjustly do bodily harm to someone, you should be put into greater confinement, prison, jail, stockade, etc., and kept there until you, or someone having sympathy for you, pays compensation for all of the damage that you have done. Compensation paid directly to the person you harmed. Any person who willfully, deliberately, and unjustly kills another person, and who does not immediately kill himself or herself, should be shunned forever by all others. Many people who are very smart in many things are not smart in choosing sexual mates. During the existence of white supremacy, racism, non-white males mating with non-white females is burdensome and mostly disappointing, but should be promoted nonetheless. Compassion is essential to the production of justice. The way to have a conversation with many people is to have a conversation with many people, mostly by getting them to talk about themselves and constructive goals. No major problem between the people of the known universe can be solved until white supremacy, racism, is replaced with justice, balance between people. Whatever it is that you think about most that gives you the most pleasure, is probably what is most important to you. Lust and romance come and go. Love, in the form of justice, is constant. The person who excites you the most, will, from time to time, bore you the most. Showing people how many curse words you can use may make you think you are more powerful than you are. The way to avoid being too fascinated with one person, is to be greatly interested in many persons. Sometimes saying nothing says all that needs saying. Always assume that in sexual matters, the white supremacists, racist men and racist women, know you better than you know yourself. Many of the people who have been treated as trash will also enjoy being involved in trashy behavior. Do not be surprised when racist men and racist women sometimes choose to do great and extremely brutal harm to each other because of disagreements about the best methods of practicing white supremacy, racism. Words used with the correct intent are better than hugs, kisses, bows, or handshakes. Be willing to offer an apology, but never ask for one. A counter-racist act is, by definition, a patriotic act. You may not know your creator, but there is logical reason to believe your creator knows you better a beggar than a robber or a thief. Expect many of the people who usually have great sexual discipline to sometimes, in some situations, plunge suddenly, and completely, into acts of unexpected and unplanned lust. In sexual matters, most people, in some circumstances, will do things that they told themselves they would never do. Always be aware of how easy it is to become involved in compelling sexual situations that very swiftly lead to activities and events that bring unplanned results and unexpected regrets. Be thankful that you did not pay full price for all of the stupid things that you've done. If it is true that it takes a village to raise a child, the non-white people of the world have proven to be children without a village. One only fears what one cannot control. White people who practice white supremacy, racism, have proven it. White people who do not practice white supremacy, racism, should prove it. There is no reason to believe that non-white people or white people are now, or ever have been, the quality of people that people should be. Peace without justice cannot exist, and the white supremacists, racists, have outlawed justice. According to compensatory counter-racist logic, any person who is a victim of white supremacy, non-white person, by being so, has earned the so-called qualification to say anything that he or she chooses to say about race, racism, and or counter-racism. There are many laws. Every person has violated at least one of them. Any claim that any person believes in justice is yet to be proven. Justice is yet to be produced. No sexual activity is more sexually moral than sexual activity that is counter-racist in effect. During the existence of white supremacy, racism, and, according to compensatory counter-racist logic, no one in the known universe has earned any act of sexual intercourse and or sexual play with a non-white or female. Love, without justice, balance between people, cannot exist in the same universe, since no person has done what is necessary to protect non-white females from their destructive effects of the system of white supremacy, racism. No person in the known universe is correctly qualified to show contempt for non-white females because of their pitiful, primitive, stupid, silly, obscene, obnoxious, and or lewd behavior. The system of white supremacy, racism, junctions in opposition to any person liking any other person. Being nice should not be mistaken for practicing justice. Every person is a mutant. So-called good people do not exist. All people, currently, are seriously flawed. The strongest and smartest person in the known universe will, at some time, become the weakest and most confused person in the known universe. Only the creator of the known universe is correctly entitled to be arrogant. Every person in the known universe should be allowed to have an opinion on everything. It is part of what makes a person, and not a thing. Passion and obsession are not the same as love, but, sometimes, they cause people to behave as if they were. Appreciate what you have. The breath that you just took is a gift. So is the next one. Instead of trying to look young, try to be healthy. Everything arranged by people has one or more built-in errors. It is correct to give compensatory consideration to those errors. When a person is dislocated from his or her possessions, the possessions are dislocated from the person. Forced dislocation without compensation is tyranny. During the existence of white supremacy, racism, it is not so-called love that causes white men and white women to want to be together. It is the need to keep producing white offspring for the purpose of maintaining the system of white supremacy. Try to learn something that is worth knowing from everyone with whom you interact. There is reason to believe that a person is never alone if he or she believes in finding truth and using truth to produce justice, correctness, and peace. Culture is what people do. What people do is, so far, flawed. Flawed culture is incorrect culture. No so-called culture that now exists can be called correct culture. To do physical work that is constructive is healthy for both the mind and the body. Do not seek to avoid it. Embrace it. There are many, nice and satisfying things that can, and should, be said about many people as individual persons, but the system of white supremacy, racism, does not permit these many nice and satisfying interactions between white people and non-white people to result in the production of justice, balance between people. The first step toward producing a counter-racist system is to change the way that words are used in the system of white supremacy as it pertains to each area of activity. Those words, when used, must have a counter-negation racist effect. Within the system of white supremacy, racism, so-called morality and sanity do not exist. Do not expect it to. In the absence of justice, sanity does not exist. Practice saying whatever you say as if you are always in court, on trial, and or about to be accused of doing something that you should not have done. Avoid thinking that the white supremacists do not know what you know. During the existence of white supremacy, many non-white males are systematically taught, directly or indirectly, that success for any non-white male is receiving the affection, devotion, and the sexual favors, sexual intercourse, of, at least, one white woman. During the existence of white supremacy, all acts of sexual intercourse that do not prove effective against white supremacy, racism, are immoral acts. A white person who knows how to participate in the practice of white supremacy, racism, and does so, is neither stupid, nor ignorant. He or she is proving his or her skill and power. A non-white person who does not know how to not be subject to the system of white supremacy, racism, has proven his or her ignorance. The only proof that white supremacy, racism, is ending, is when white supremacy, racism, has ended. Both blackness and whiteness serve a constructive purpose, but only if they function in balance with one another. This is true of all people, creatures, and things. Your body works hard to use the food that you eat. Do not work your body to death by eating too much. The less you know about a person's so-called sex life, the less you know about the person. During the existence of white supremacy, racism, no non-white person can truthfully say that he or she has a life. He or she can truthfully claim to have a pitiful existence. So-called romance rituals that involve non-white people are, at best, pitiful, tacky, grotesque, and or childishly silly. The one thing that the white supremacists do, with great and confusing skill, is to celebrate and praise non-white people, while, at the same time, systematically oppressing and killing them. Try to get the best out of this moment. The next one is not guaranteed to you. The system of white supremacy has produced the greatest use of most things, and the worst abuse of most people. Every person is a part of every other person's history. Every person who remembers something that has happened, is a historian. A male wanting to be a female, or a female wanting to be a male, is not a correct condition of the mind. All mistreatment should be compensated for by those who are most to blame for causing the mistreatment. Being smart is not the same as being wise. Smart people may or may not practice justice, balance between people. Wise people always do. Wise people do not currently exist. A human being is always humane. One can be a being without being humane. In a non-humane system, human beings do not exist. In a situation of fewer and fewer sexual restrictions, it will be the non-white females who will be displeased the most. Most people have some criticism of the sexual activities of most other people, but none about their own. The ignorance that we spread, one to another, is one of the worst of poisons. A truly masculine non-white male with a truly feminine non-white female, is a combination that should always be joyfully welcomed and supported. It is incorrect to punish a person for being primitive. Being primitive is not a crime, nor is it the same as being a savage. Apostrophe think about it. Fights and arguments between white people, no matter how violent or destructive, have never resulted in the end of white supremacy, racism. It is important to understand how best to use the word snitch or snitching. To snitch means to use information in such manner as to oppose the production of justice, balance between people. Telling the truth about people who mistreat people is not snitching. It is telling the truth about people who mistreat people. Everyone should know the identity of every person who mistreats people. To reveal the identity of such persons is not snitching. Apostrophe exposing racists, robbers, and murderers is not snitching. It is helping to produce justice. If you threaten to kill a person that you rob, you should expect to be killed by anyone, and you should ask for mercy from no one. Stand by your work. A person should be DLL for self, but, in order to be all for self, that person must be at least half for others. This is a part of the logical law of balance. Since every person receives from others, every person, because of self-negation interest, should be willing to give to others. This is compensatory logic. As long as a non-white person is subject to the system of white supremacy, racism, there is no way for him or her to avoid some expressions of so-called self-hatred. Apostrophe much of what people report as history is deliberately, or by mistake, not true. Respect is to refuse to lie to oneself. Males who attempt to prove to themselves that they can have sexual intercourse with males, and females who attempt to prove to themselves that they can have sexual intercourse with females, are lying to themselves, and have no self-respect. Beware, especially of those white people who know how to convince you that they are on your side, while at the same time, doing things that will work against you, in order to help themselves. An important question to ask when someone seeks an association with you is, what do you want from me that you do not have now? During the existence of white supremacy, racism, no person has avoided giving service to it. Many do so with sorrow, many do so with ignorance, many do so with pride. All should admit that they continue to do so. Pure evil, perhaps, cannot be logically explained. Avoid all non-constructive contacts. Seek to make every contact that you have with another person a contact that produces a maximum constructive effect. When a person seeks contact with another person, it is always because that person wants something from that other person, either for better, or for worse. The study of true history is, basically, the study of things that people have done that they should have done, and the study of things that people have done that they should not have done. It is correct to learn those lessons. Be suspicious of any so-called death by accident that, directly or indirectly, involves matters of race, racism, and or counter-racism. Think of the white supremacists, racist men and racist women, as being the usual suspects in anything happening that should not happen, and in judging whom to blame the most. Stop pretending that you want to produce justice, balance between people, when what you really want is a satisfying sexual mate. What most people will or will not do, sexually, is mostly circumstantial. In sexual matters, it is best to expect the unexpected. Non-white people are functionally inferior to those white people who practice white supremacy, racism. The reason is because non-white people have not been as willing to end white supremacy, racism, as much as the white supremacists, racists, have been willing to practice it. The system of white supremacy, racism, makes sewage and sewers of non-white people. Be willing to work for, and to pay for, everything that you get. By doing so, you will become a better person. Never seek to like yourself the way that you are. Always seek to improve your thoughts, your speech, and your actions. Seek to make them more constructive. As long as white supremacy, racism, exists, it is correct to think of your temporary home as being a counter-racist code of thought, speech, and action. Stop saying my people. If you are not the creator, you do not own any person, not yourself, and not others. People who have sexual problems will cause problems for other people. Truth be told, some white people want to be non-white, some non-white people want to be white, some females want to be males, some males want to be females. None of these wants serve any constructive purpose. It can be said that you only own whatever it is that brings you happiness at the exact moment that you are happy. Apostrophe it can also be said that all else that you own is excess illusion. For some form of entertainment, lean to appreciate looking at birds, or clouds, or flowers, or trees. Study yourself. Is there any logical reason why any person would want to spend most of his or her time in your presence? Killing is not something to be proud of, according to compensatory counter-racist logic. It is no more correct to blame white people for being white than it is to blame non-white people for not being white. The truth about a person cannot be known unless the person has revealed every thought that he or she has ever had. Contempt for other beings ends with contempt for self. To a victim of white supremacy, a non-white person, the whole world is a death camp, and every white supremacist, racist man and racist woman, is a camp commander. If you have hands, feet, hearing, and eyesight, think about what it would be like not to have any of them. Count your blessings. You are likely very wealthy in many ways. Ladies, never be ashamed of your vaginas. It is superb real estate. Many things that are so-called remembered did not happen the way that they were so-called remembered. Apostrophe if you choose to arrange an attention-getting hairstyle, or put anything on your head or body that is intended to attract the attention of others, be willing to say what you want to happen as a result. Shame is produced by custom. For example, engaging in sexual intercourse in public is regarded as shameful. Eating dead animals in public is not. There is reason to believe that so-called homosexuality and lesbianism could be some of the strongest expressions of self-hate. Every non-white female should be fiercely feminine and should do all she can to use her femininity constructively. Every person is a mutant, and every mutant, by being a mutant, gains something, and loses something. When you cannot do what is needed, do what you can, and continue to plan to do what is needed. Everywhere, all of the time. Some situations are better than others. Try to put yourself into the better situation and use it to make all situations the best. Any form of tribalism that is not intended to produce justice, balance between all people, will make more problems than it solves. Politics is anything that people do that affects people. The white supremacists, racists, are the most powerful entertainers, and the non-white people dance to their tunes in every area of activity. In sexual matters, never be surprised at anything that you see or hear. The female who acts as a lady is likely to be treated as a lady. Apostrophe when most females have no regard for decency, most males won't either. In criticizing the incorrect sexual behavior of others, be willing to include all of the things that you've done, that you should not have done. If you are ashamed to be seen naked, ask yourself what you would do if garments were not provided for you. Practice enjoying the many things that are available to you that you can look at, touch, listen to, or use, without being required to buy. Work, 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 and more work should be welcomed. Constructive work will always help make you a better person than you thought you could be. Constructive work should be regarded as fun. Use spirit to find logic. Spirit was a gift to you. Personally, logic was put in the universe for you to find and put to use. Correct use of logic will produce constructive results. Fear can sometimes inspire a person to be brave. But bravery should be accompanied with logic. It can be said that everybody is inferior to somebody, at some time, in something. What, exactly, is the correct procedure for proving who is inferior, and who is superior? As long as the system of white supremacy, racism, has not been replaced with the system of justice, balance between people, the non-white people of the known universe will continue to function as a worthless people. No person is ever too young, or too old, to learn anything that is of constructive value. Everything in the known universe enforces or practices some form of law, simply by existing. Existence, itself, is a law practice. If you were ever told that it is your duty to do all that you can to try to produce justice, then you should always be able to truthfully say, I have done, and I am doing, as I was told. Be credible, be trustworthy, avoid saying anything that you are not willing to repeat. Any custom, tradition, or so-called lifestyle that does not help to produce justice, should be avoided. When asked how are you can say, less than perfect. When asked how are things, you can say, out of balance. The evidence shows that those white people who practice racism, white supremacy, are smarter, and more powerful, than those who do not. Minimize all unnecessary conversation. Be brief and constructive. Before saying anything, think about what you intend to accomplish by saying what you are about to say. Practice talking to people only when they indicate that they want to talk to you. Avoid casual visits into a person's private space. Never discuss racial matters unless you can do so in a manner that best promotes the production of justice. Constructive words and constructive deeds should always be valued regardless of the source. Practice using the term equality relationship in regards to the constructive ways that white people and non-white people should relate to each other. Do not use the terms racial integration or racial segregation. The quality relationship always includes the guarantee that no person is mistreated, and the guarantee that the person who needs help the most, gets the most constructive help. As of now, the quality relationship between and among the people of the known universe does not exist. In an unjust world, no person is good. All people are corrupt. People who believe that they are good are more likely to become more corrupt. Do not seek or accept praise, no matter how great your accomplishments may be. Any so-called tribe or culture that does not have justice as its main reason for existence should not be regarded as a correct tribe or culture. When you steal from a person, you should be required to repay to that person at least twice the value of what you stole. The system of white supremacy, racism, can also be correctly called the racist monarchy of the known universe. True, marriage has guarantees. There is no way for any non-white person who is subject to white supremacy, racism, to guarantee that which is required to make a marriage. Many people look for justice and claim that it cannot be found. Justice is not a value to be found, it is a value to be produced. People who agree to have sexual intercourse with each other should also agree to have no secrets from each other. During the existence of white supremacy, racism, correct government among the people of the known universe does not, and cannot, exist. Apparently, there are some who believe that, except for prevention of disease and unwanted pregnancy, there should be no restrictions of any kind against any combinations of people engaging in mutual sexual intercourse or sexual play. Do not wait until you like a person before you try to help him or her do something of constructive value. Minimize unnecessary conflict. Avoid lending anything that you cannot afford to give away. Do not be possessed by your possessions. For everything that you receive of value, offer something of value. Think. Whatever you put into your body or your mind will either build it up, or tear it down. Be wary of images of people, creatures, or things that may, or may not, help to reveal truth. Avoid thinking that because one person looks like another, that both persons are alike in their thought, speech, and action. If you choose to seek happiness, do so by seeking ways to produce justice. One way to learn how to do something of constructive value is to volunteer to help someone who is doing something of constructive value, and who is willing to teach you to do what is being done. There is no way to talk about racism, white supremacy, and tell the truth, and make constructive suggestions based on telling the truth, without offending many white people and embarrassing many non-white people. The white supremacists, racist men and racist women, collectively, are masters of fear. Therefore, expect most non-white people to fear them. During the existence of white supremacy, racism, it is incorrect for non-white females to expect non-white males to protect them from the non-just decisions of racist men and racist women. Non-white males have proven that they do not know how to protect themselves. Every move in every dance should produce a constructive thought. The words in every song should produce constructive thoughts that cause people to want to do constructive deeds. Constructive activity should always be the most desirable way of using your time and energy. Your history is everything that has ever happened before the beginning of time. And since, during the existence of white supremacy, racism, all non-white people, victims of white supremacy, are entitled to child support from racist men and racist women. Everything that is happening now is, directly or indirectly, related to, and or associated with, everything that has happened. So far, none of the cults and none of the cultures that have been produced by the people of the known universe have resulted in justice or peace. Justice, balance between people, does not exist. Those who have the will to produce justice do not have the skill to produce it. Those who have the skill to produce it do not have the will. Many people do harmful things simply because they can. Make sure that you are not one of those people. Justice, balance between people, cannot be found. It must be produced.